It's James with Net News Ledger, and in our weekly update with Minister of Health and Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Hajdu, we want to get some questions in. Welcome back, Minister.
Thank you very much, James.
You have been so busy over the last weeks and months. It must be nice just to be home for a few days.
It is. I have had very little time with my partner and my dogs. Those of you who are dog people will know that it's hard enough to be away from your dogs for a week, but it's been in some cases 3 weeks at a time where I haven't been able to come home. So it's nice to be at home. It's nice to see the lake. I am socially isolating given the rules from the Thunder Bay District Health Unit, although they just lifted those. So I'm contemplating going out on the weekend. So we'll see what happens.
Well, things are starting to open up, and as long as we're cautious, I guess is the message.
I think that's a really important message, actually. I think it's the most important message that as tempting as it's going to be for everyone to feel like life is returning to normal, we are going to have to adapt certain behaviors in our life or adopt certain behaviors in our life on a more permanent basis, especially while there still is no treatment and no vaccination for this very, very sneaky virus. So the things we've been learning about over the last several months really hold true, making sure we wash our hands, really ensuring that we don't go anywhere if we're not feeling well. Now we can get tested as Ontarians if even suspect that we've been exposed to COVID-19 or we're worried about any symptoms we might have. Call the health unit and they'll direct you to the right direction. And then finally, just making sure that if we are going to be out and about, that we're wearing a face mask in crowded situations like grocery stores or on public transit. This is just a respectful thing to do of the people around you and to protect others from the droplets from your mouth and really reduce any potential spread that might be happening. And so I think it's time for all of us to really lock down those behaviors because with more activity, there's going to be more risk.
That's sort of the scary one because we've seen some increased numbers across the region of. I was talking to Charles Turtwell from the Northern Policy Institute later, and we're going to try and shift and start calling ourselves Western Canada instead of Northwestern on Canada because we're really south of even Vancouver here in Thunder Bay. But keeping ourselves focused is going to be hard because as the playgrounds start to open up and the splash pads open up, it's the kids are going to probably be the ones out there not really understanding some of this.
Well, we're not really sure yet in terms of children's what the role of children is, what the role is of kids in terms of spread. We know it's harder for kids to physically distance themselves from one another, but we also know that when kids get sick, generally speaking, it's much milder than when adults get sick. We also don't know how infectious they are and whether or not, the spread is as rapid. So listen, we're all going to have to be vigilant. It's really hard for kids though and hard for families. I think it's hard for everyone, but I think for parents of small children or children that's school age, it's been a difficult time for them as they miss their friends and miss that opportunity to get out in the community. So I understand that it's going to be a lot of work for all of us.
Now, as the economy starts to open up, the federal government has been doing a lot of things to help businesses either stay on their feet or to get up off the ground where they've been knocked off their feet.
That's it. Well, one of the things we knew early on, we knew that we needed a supplement for people that would have to stay home. For Canadians that were struggling with unemployment as a result of COVID or sick themselves or taking care of people. We also knew that we wanted to sustain our business community through this terrible time because we knew that in particular small and medium-sized businesses, but large businesses too, would be really hurt by the changing patterns of people and people spending less and people just doing less. And we knew that the strongest chance we had of returning to a booming economy was making sure that as many as possible of those businesses could survive. So we have a blend of opportunities for businesses, whether it's loans, wage subsidies, and even support for large businesses that's being facilitated through a committee that will look at large business needs. But the whole goal of all that work is to make sure that we come through this stronger together and truly maintaining the fabric of our business community, which, as you know, is integral to the success of our Canadian economy and are the job creators for all of us.
Some of the local companies I've noticed have really done I'm going to call it a bang up job of adapting their model for doing business. One that comes to mind is Bay Village Coffee, where they've gone sort of old school and gone, okay, we bring the coffee out to you because no one can come into their coffee shop. You know, a lot of
Well,
businesses
actually,
are.
it's it's interesting. So many businesses have been able to adapt like that. Others have not, and it depends on, I suppose, their capacity, the tools they might have in their community, some of their own particular assets of their business and their business model. But you're right. Adaptation is where I think it's at, and many companies. Bay Village is a great example. Have taken a look at what they offer, and with some tweaks, have been able to continue to sustain their business. In some cases, grow their business. Today, Minister Ng announced $58 million or so to help businesses transition to more online selling and more online access to services and goods. And in fact, that's one of the things that Bay Village did was they really quickly created a platform to order their product online. And I think that's what we need to do is we need to be thinking about this as obviously a challenge, but there are some opportunities, I think, as well. And one of them is that we can facilitate with people really migrating online, businesses to be able to more quickly adapt how they offer their services and goods. And with a little bit of extra support from the federal government, I think we can make that happen.
I've often thought of Thunder Bay, we're in the middle of everything. And, you know, going digital means that the world can come to us and we can go to the world.
Well, absolutely. And I think, this is, we've got some advantages here for sure. And I think with the digital online economy, many people are starting to realize that the way that they market their goods and in some cases their services can be digital. Goods can be shipped all around the country, in fact, all around the world. And, there is opportunity to expand the access of products into new markets. If you look at, for example, Sleeping Giant Brewery, you can buy that beer in Ottawa, for example. You can buy that beer widely in Ontario and I believe in other provinces as well, depending on the provincial trade agreements. And so there are there's opportunity for businesses that want to grow. Another one that comes to mind is Heartbeat Hot Sauce. I have a
Absolutely.
Jamaican colleague, and Jamaicans know their hot sauce. Let me tell you,
Big
it's
time.
a national treasure. And he mentioned to me the other day that his favorite hot sauce is Heartbeat Hot Sauce. I said, well, how did you even find out about it? And it was through one of those shows that feature different hot sauces. And as you know, Heartbeat was a winner in one of those shows. And it just goes to show you that Thunder Bay has put itself on the map through the ingenuity of these small businesses time and again. And there's nothing to say that we can't do it over and over.
I can relate to that. I got a report from Google recently on Net News Ledger, and there's only 13 countries in the world that have not been visiting Net News Ledger this year. If you're out there listening to this one and you're from Greenland, hey, log in, and from Cuba and a couple of countries in the middle of Africa. But other than that, we're our little town, our biggest city idea is growing across the world.
Well, absolutely. It's really neat for me. I mean, the pandemic obviously threw a wrench in things for so many people, but if you look at what's happening in our downtown cores and the new businesses that are popping up, they're often driven by young people, and they're young people who either want to stay in Thunder Bay or who have come back to Thunder Bay having experienced life in a different part of the country or in a different part of the world and decided that home's the best place to be. And all of their work is actually what creates what I call a quality of life. I mean, I want to shop local. I want to buy my soap locally and my skincare locally and my clothing locally if I can. And I mean, it's just great to see that passion. And in fact, some of those business owners are some of the most innovative, as you know, in terms of really transitioning quickly with the challenge that COVID-19 has presented us.
Now, the other area that's starting to expand back to, well, let's call it closer to normal, is in healthcare. The Dryden Hospital is opening up services now. Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center is doing the same thing. The message, of course, always comes in as caution, but we are starting to see, is the light, is it at the end of the tunnel? Where do you think we are in this whole COVID situation?
It's really hard to say. I've been asked that question probably a million times since we started. It's really hard, and I would not even want to predict. But what I'll just say is that Canada's in a much better place now in terms of our capacity to handle any outbreaks. We've got, ourselves sorted out from a testing perspective. Provinces all across the country are getting much better at having testing strategies that make sense. The federal government, as you know, helping and support provinces and territories to test as widely as they want. We have a capacity goal of 200,000 by the fall, and I think we're going to make it. So that means that provinces and territories will have the capacity to test up to 200,000 people a day. That's pretty impressive. And then I think, the ability to quickly do the contact tracing and isolating, that really helps. So like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do still think we need to be vigilant. People need to be really watchful. All levels of government, all organizations, all businesses really need to be thinking through how they protect themselves and the people that work for them. And listen, it's not just the right thing to do. It's the actual imperative. Nobody wants to see their business shut down because they've had an outbreak. Nobody wants a hospital to have to close its doors because they haven't managed, the testing strategy for their own staff, et cetera, carefully. And so people are really understanding that.
Now, one thing from observing and reporting on news, some of the political partisanship between the provinces and the federal government seem to be a lot more cooperative.
I think we'll always have, listen, politicians are political beasts by their nature. We often have different perspectives on how to solve a problem that presents the country or the region. But I will say that everybody realizes that this virus does not care if you're a conservative, an NDP, a liberal. It doesn't matter. And so, there are some politicians globally that think that they can politic their way out of this. We know here in Canada, regardless of kind of what stripe we are, that this is serious and that our entire economy depends on us getting this right. So you can't actually separate the two. If you have an outbreak in your country, it is devastating for your economy. So they're intertwined, and it's really actually quite relieving that all politicians know that. Now, there might be differences of opinion in Canada about how we reach a particular goal or what we should do about a particular challenge, but I think everybody is focused on making sure that we really manage this beast of COVID-19 and we protect our economy going forward.
And the Canadian-US border, any word? We've been hearing through the week it's going to be extended again?
We're certainly not in any rush to open up the Canada-US border, or really any international borders for that matter. There is an increased amount of traffic internationally, and of course countries are contemplating now how to do that. There's no roadmap for this, by the way. It's unprecedented that countries would have such a fragmented patchwork of rules and policies in place in terms of international travel. And so part of the challenge is really creating a new normal for Canada. My job as health minister has been very focused. I've been extremely focused on boosting up our capacity to do health screening at the border, so increasing our health professionals to work closely with CBSA, but also making sure that we have the right policies in place. As you know, we currently have a 14-day quarantine for all non-essential travelers. That includes Canadians coming back, or most recently, spouses and close family that are reunited. But we know that these things will have to evolve as well as the disease evolves, but also as the international travel community evolves. In terms of the U.S. border, I think as we both countries work to manage their outbreaks, I think, not worrying about increased risk of importation allows us to stay focused on making sure that we have our processes locked tight here in Canada.
A message for the riding minister before we close out and let you get back to work?
Well, I'll just tell everyone that I'm obviously hoping everybody will really maintain the health practices that we've been learning over the next few months. This is a critical time for all of us. As people start to visit their seniors in long-term care homes, as people start to go to the shops, as people start to contemplate, moving about or even gathering with other families, make sure you follow the advice of local public health. Make sure you're following the rules the province has set for us, and make sure utmost importance that if you are all at doubt that you've been exposed to COVID-19 or that you're symptomatic, that you stay home and that you get tested. I think that will really help make sure that we don't unwittingly spread this virus to one another.
As we always say, Minister, stay tuned and stay safe. And thank you very much for your time again this week.
Thank you very much, James. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.